Jetzt, wenn es klickt, ist gut. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna, welcome to the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam class. We continue in the 4th chapter, and today chapter 5 starts, called The Frustration of the Sacrifice of Daksha. Going word by word. Maitreya Uvacha Bhavo Bhavanya Nidhanam Prajapate Asatkritaya Avagamya Naradat Svaparshadasainyam Cha Tad Atvaram Pubhir Atvarar Pubhir Vitravitam Grodham Aparam Adhadhe Maitreya Uvacha Bhavo Bhavanya Nidhanam Prajapate Bhavo Bhavanya Nidhanam Prajapate Asat Kritaya Avagamya Naradat Asat Kritaya Avagamya Naradat Svabharshadasanyam Chatat Atvara Pubhir. Give me a second. Svabharshadasanyam Chatat Atvarar Pubhir. Oh, it's a long one. Svabharshadasanyam Chatat Atvarar Pubhir. Vitra Vitam Krutham Aparam Adhadhe Vitra Vitam Krodham Aparam Adhadhe Maitreya Vacha Bhavo Bhavanya Nidhanam Prajapate Asat Kritaya Avagamya Naradat Svaparshada Sanyam Chatat Atvarar Bhubir Vitra Vitam Krutam Aparam Adhadhe. We go immediately word by word. I'm a bit short in time today. Maitreya Vacha. Maitreya said, Bhavaha, Lord Shiva, Bhavanyaha, of Sati, Nidhanam, to death, Prajapatehe, because of Prajapati Daksha, Asad Kritaya, having been insulted, Avagamya, hearing about, Naradat, from Narada, Svabharshada Sainyam, the soldiers of his own associates, Cha, and Tad Advara, produced from, his, and then it's like there's a few brackets, produced from Daksha sacrifice actually. Yeah, produced from Daksha sacrifice. Ribubihi, by the ribus. Vitravitam, were driven away. Grodham, anger. Aparam, unbounded. Adadhe, showed. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai. Maitreya said, when Lord Shiva heard from Narada that Sati, his wife, was now dead because of Prajapati Daksha's insult to her, and that his soldiers had been driven away by the Ribu demigods, he became greatly angry. Purport. Lord Shiva understood that Sati, being the youngest daughter of Daksha, could present the case of Lord Shiva's purity of purpose and would thus be able to mitigate the misunderstanding between Daksha and himself. But such a compromise was not attained, and Sati was deliberately insulted by her father by not being received properly when she visited his house without being invited. Sati herself could have killed her father Daksha because she is the personified material energy and has immense power to kill and create within this material universe. In the Brahma Samhita, her strength is described. She is capable of creating and dissolving many universes, but although she is so powerful, she acts under the direction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, as his shadow. It would not have been difficult for Sati to punish her father, but she thought that since she was his daughter, it was not proper for her to kill him. Thus she decided to give up her own body, which she had obtained from his, and Daksha did not even check her. When Sati passed away, giving up her body, the news was conveyed by Narada to Lord Shiva. Narada always carries the news of such events because he knows their import. When Lord Shiva heard that his chaste wife Sati was dead, he naturally became exceedingly angry. He also understood that Bhrigu Muni had created the Ripudeva demigods by uttering the mantras of the Yajurveda, and that these demigods had driven away all of his soldiers who were present in the arena of sacrifice. And therefore he wanted to reply to this insult, and thus he decided to kill Daksha because he was the cause of the death of Sati. Om Akyanati Mirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshuran Militam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Svapadantikam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaura Bhaktarinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Agishayasya Vadane Lakshmiryasya Chavaksasi Yasya Te Hridaye Samvit Tam Narasimham Maham Bhaje Pralada Hridayaladam Bhaktavitya Vidaram Sharatinduruchim Vande Parindra Vandanam Harim. So now we are at the point in the story where Daksha is, reaping or getting the results of his actions. So there's a whole chain of events, starting with the insult of Daksha by Shiva, which caused quite some waves, ultimately to the point that Sati gave up her body. And now we see that Lord Shiva, seeing what happened, he became extremely angry. And he decided, as Prabhupada says in the purport, to kill Daksha. So it seems quite, heavy or quite intense that there is immediately killing going on. But let's look at last time we spoke also of statues and expectation of statues. King Daksha was the Prajapati, which means Srila Prabhupada used the term governor of all living entities. And in Vedic understanding it is like that the higher a person's status or responsibility, the more drastic is also the consequence when overstepping one's, boundaries, or if offenses are created, or if one is not fulfilling one's duty, or even causing harm like Daksha did here. It's for example said when a Shudra is drinking or intoxicating himself, it's not such a big deal because it's somehow or other within his svabhava, in his constitutional nature, that he has inclination, because he's much more governed by tamogun. Whereas if a Brahman would do that, that would be much more grave, since he's supposed to be in the mode of goodness, and he has to set also an example for others. So he is in a different position, so his doings or not doings, they matter differently than those who are in different statues of life, like the Vaishyas and Kshatriyas. So each of them, they have their particular designated duties and expectations, and in the Vedic Shastra, there's so many Shastras governing this whole principle of if rules are violated, So, and I don't remember the exact consequence for the Brahmin who would, for example, intoxicate himself, but it's rather severe compared to what, for example, a Shudra is being expected to do or not do. So we see also here in Daksha, when he in his position had a quite an impact, because so many people also, or demigods, looked up to him. His example, also Krishna says himself in the Bhagavad Gita, he's saying, it matters what I do and how I do it, because whatever example I set, common man will follow. Because I am Krishna, Supreme Personality of Godhead, and even I don't have any duties, it's my energy, I don't have to do anything. Still, people will say, yeah, but Krishna does like this, so why shouldn't I do like this? So it matters much more than if person XYZ does something, or if someone like Daksha does something. So, and besides that, of course, Shiva had a lot of reason to be angry, because it was nothing less that his own wife felt forced to leave her body because of that. So plus, he said, all his soldiers had been driven away, so it was a great offense, so he had to respond to it as well. It would be, sometimes it's saying tolerating something like that is the same as sanctioning it. So it could be the message of, and anyway, among Kshatriyas there's always although Shiva is not exactly in a category of a Varna or an ashram, he has his own tattva, but Daksha, like acting as a king, at the same time also somewhat as a Brahmin, so there had to be some response to this whole incident. Yeah, and Shiva, as we'll hear later, he manifests a demon that was capable to slaughter Daksha. And we might wonder still about this whole topic of anger in great personalities. As before the verses were saying, there was astonishment about how Daksha could be so cruel, hard-hearted. There was a similar astonishment about, how can such emotions be present in such a great personality? Aren't they to be condemned, these emotions, or not to be exhibited by a great personality, like a Prajapati or Lord Shiva? Why is Shiva getting so angry if he is even the greatest of Vaishnavas, and with other things, nothing can agitate him? It said he in his yogic practice, he was so absorbed, nothing, not even his wife could break his meditation, so very undisturbed, adhira. So now, but here comes that, the quality of anger, and I would like to address this topic a bit more today, because I find it is something also we as Vaishnavas and devotees, we have to have a rather holistic understanding of it, because the tendency is to be rather simplistic about it, or like even at times ignorant about how do these things work. And can one even be expected to not have certain emotions? Can we really control that, what is going on emotionally? So that would be something I would like to address. We hear in the Bhagavad Gita that Krishna is determining a few qualities, or like the main qualities that govern the actions of a Brahmin. And the first one is Shamo, which means peacefulness. Shamo damastapa shaucham, kshantir arjavam evacha, jnanam vijnanam astikyam, brahma karma svabhavajam. So there are some qualities listed, beginning with peacefulness. Damo is patience. Then there's purity, and also the cleanliness. Yeah, shaucham is cleanliness. Kshantir What do we have here? Yes, tolerance, arjavam, honesty. And then there's jnanam, knowledge, vijnanam, wisdom, and arjavam is, astikyam is the religiousness. So in the first place we have the quality of peacefulness, which means being undisturbed. Brahman is not agitated quickly. He's supposed to be situated in transcendental sound. There's a distinction, of course, of different grades of Brahmins, and also the distinction between Brahman and Vaishnava, as we recently spoke about it. At the same time, within a Vaishnava, these qualities automatically are expected to be included, if the Vaishnava is superior to the Brahman even. So, like Lord Shiva, these qualities are there, like peacefulness, tolerance, and so on. And at the same time we hear that also the Brahmins tend to be very angry, apparently quickly. Often we hear that some Brahmins curse some personalities out of some offenses, and sometimes it appears perhaps even minor offenses, depending on the understanding of the observer. And we see that curses of Brahmins, or like, we must speak a bit broader, the categories of munis, rishis, they all go in the category a bit of sages, Brahmins. The distinctions sometimes are maybe not so clear. What is now the distinction between a rishi, a muni, and the Brahmin? They all have something in common. There might be different gradations of how advanced they are also in spiritual understanding. For example, in the Mahabharata we find that King Pandu also was cursed by a rishi, which is considered to be a Brahmin, who interestingly was engaged in sexual activity by taking the form of a deer with his wife. So then King Pandu was somehow or other like overcome by passion, was hunting, and he killed both of them. Then he got cursed by the Brahmin. Okay, when you try to engage in intercourse to have children, you will die. So that was the curse. One might wonder, what is like a Brahmin or like a rishi doing, taking a shape of a deer and enjoying like this? But that's maybe another question. And we have different examples where also Brahmins, more regular Brahmins, so to speak, became angry and cursed. Like we have the Brahmin Shringi, which was considered not to be so advanced. He was a young Brahmin boy still. And when King Parikshit was at the place of his father's house, and the father, what was his name? Do you remember that? The father of Shringi? No. However, his father was absorbed very much in meditation, trance. He did not perceive what's happening outside of himself. And then King Parikshit came, was very thirsty because he was on the road for a long time. And King Parikshit, out of some reason, decided to hang a dead snake around the Brahmin's neck, signalizing, hey, you are neglectful, practically. I don't remember exactly the meaning of the gesture. So, but Shringi got very upset about this and cursed King Parikshit to die from a snake bite within 7 days. So we see there's this quality of anger, and we can understand that the normal Brahmin is affected by the modes of nature. He said he's conditioned by a sense of superiority and happiness that comes from the mode of goodness. So he actually tends to be proud, the Brahmin, out of his knowledge and his advanced understanding, which allows him to be better situated, and therefrom happiness comes. And then it's explained, but he tends to be he tends to be proud, and pride gives rise to anger. Because if I'm proud, I expect much more honor from others. And if I'm not proud, if I'm rather humble, I don't mind so much if others really appreciate me, respect me, honor me, treat me a particular way. If I'm humble, these things are not so much mattering to me. So this is one quality that is there in the Brahmins. At the same time, when we look now at Shiva, this quality we cannot suspect there. Shiva is free from pride. No, he's controlling the false ego, the element. So at the same time now he manifests as anger. And here we can understand, actually, anger is also a necessity. It's part of the material nature. It's a destructive principle that has to be applied anyway from time to time, not out of the motive of hurt ego, sometimes also for the sake of justice, punishment. For example, Maharaj Parikshit went on to punish Kali. Also, he must exhibit some anger. He got angry because this person destroyed Dharma, practically. So it was not a personal thing, I'm not respected or honored. It's more like, here's something very wrong, ethically wrong is happening. And this feeling of anger was signalizing that here now is the time to act, to punish, to do something about it. Also in the Bhagavad Gita, Srila Prabhupada is pointing out, Arjuna had to get somehow or other in the mood of anger, because how can he fight without being angry? Cannot do that. At the same time, there was necessity for the fight, so anger must be there, in order to punish also the asuras in this case. So we see the anger is there, but it depends rather out of which reason and for what purpose it is applied. Also we hear Srila Prabhupada saying that a Vaishnava is not necessary. We should not think a Vaishnava has no anger within him or no capacity to be angry. No, I mean, he says even anger should be applied if one sees another Vaishnava or Krishna being offended, attacked, insulted. And then he says the devotee or Vaishnava should be like fire. We also heard before like how actually Sati was pointing out these different ways of how to address the situation of this offense. And there was mentioned the different methods like killing the offender, for example, cutting out his tongue, which is very drastic. Mentioning that in our terms it would be barbaric, to say cutting out someone's tongue. I mean, seriously, it's like chopping off someone's hand for stealing. Same kind of thing. But and then, or killing one's own self, like it's meant for the Shudras, the Kshatriyas who can punish are supposed to, cut the tongue, and the Brahmins, they might curse. Like they also did with King Vena. They killed King Vena with mantras. King Vena was very offensive to all the Brahmins and Vaishnavas, and the Brahmanas ultimately killed him with mantras. So, anger is something that is not absent, and one cannot avoid anger. We all can see it in our lives. We cannot choose whether to feel anger or not. It's rather what we can choose is how to respond to the anger we feel. I think this is an important aspect, because if you speak of also mind control, controlling anger, because the nectar of instruction is pointing out that one has vacha vegam, manasa krodha vegam. One has to control tongue, not the demands of the mind, and anger. Krodha is extra mentioned. One has to learn to control that, to be a dearer, to be tolerant of that. But it means it is there. And often there are different levels. There's the feeling, then we can choose how to respond to the anger, how we think of it. If we say, oh, it's justified, it's good, or no, I'm a bad person because I feel angry. I shouldn't feel angry, so there's this whole capacity of repressing it. And then there's the behavior level. The only thing we manage to control a bit is how we behave. Even if we feel one side, we might behave, we feel one way, we behave completely the opposite way. I feel very angry and upset, but I'm very kind and nice. Hare Krishna, Prabhu, Hare Krishna, Mataji. But actually inside I'm boiling and I'm burning. So then we become, in a sense, though we might try to live up to an ideal, we become hypocrites in a sense. Because our inner experience does not match our external behavior. And there's the big challenge, but what do we do with that? Like, we have this etiquette, how we're supposed to behave, and then we have that what's going on within our minds. So, and here there's a need to learn to deal with anger effectively, and one thing is, of course, to acknowledge it. And to see where the anger is coming from. In this case of Lord Shiva, he said in the purport, Shiva understood that actually Daksha is the cause of Sati's death, and also Bhrigu Muni, who acts in the service of Daksha, also chased away the soldiers he sent by the Ribudev demigods, and he became very angry about that. This is also practically supporting Daksha's wrongdoing. Because these associates of Sati, they were also prepared to lay down their lives, but they couldn't match this Ribu demigods, Ribudevs. So they were all being chased away, which is practically saying also, yeah, we defend Daksha, like although he's doing something completely wrong. So here, what was needed is a punishment out of understanding what's right and wrong. And this is something we have in German, also this word Zivilcourage, which is something still existing, but it's also hard, it's very declined, to step in and something is happening, like someone is being bullied or robbed or treated in a bad way, to use anger and aggression to protect. That's something, of course, if you look at Varnashram as the Kshatriya's duty, but let's be practical. I mean, don't have such a distinction. It's about people in a situation and to see what is their capacity to respond to a wrongdoing of someone else. And also with Vaishnavas, we see among Vaishnavas often if there's treatment, when people are being treated in an improper way, being insulted or even kind of abused emotionally, physically, whatever, and then anger is not just in place, it's wanted and needed. Because let's look at what is emotion. The word emotion, the E is in front, but motion is the movement. It's actually what moves us within our mind. Through the feelings, we also get a sense of how we are connected with the world, how we are connected with values. They reflect the relationships we have with ourselves, with other people, and with things. The body is also made of senses and needs. And emotions also tell us about the relationship with our body, for example. A feeling of hunger means my body needs food. Right? Feeling of tiredness means my body needs rest, and so on. So in a similar way, on the more mental platform, also feelings give us a sense of what is the quality or the way of relationship I have with the people around me and also with myself. Sometimes we feel very sad or disappointed, and it doesn't really so much necessarily have to do with others. And perhaps we look in ourselves and see, I actually did not live up to my own expectation, for example. So the relationship with myself is, I expected something, I wanted something, I didn't reach my goal. Then it can be with others. Let's say I really attempted something and others just put me down or do not appreciate what I'm doing, and I feel hurt or angry. So it could be also then in the relationship level, I'm not acknowledged or not supported, and the feeling is frustration. And we often tend to make the feeling the problem. Anger is the problem. Or greed is or envy, whatever feelings are there. There's so many emotions, sadness and so on, hurt. But actually the emotion itself is not a problem. It points to the problem. The emotion is a bit like a mirror. In psychology you understand that the emotions give us signals and we must learn to read them, the feelings. Because sometimes in the name of spirituality, people try to cut off emotions. And then they have some sense also of emptiness or unawareness about themselves. Because, they instead of learning to read the emotions and then in this way also asserting some control over them by understanding them, one just tries to cut them off. And then they pull back in a tamasic way. People in psychology, we understand too much repression leads to so-called neurotic traits in a person. Can become really disturbed even. So emotion is that it moves our mind, and our mind is of course also moved by what we call raga and dvesa, the attachment and the resentment. That's also there. And in the Yoga yoga practice in the 6th chapter, it is highlighted how the center of the yoga practice is actually the control of the mind. And we know mind means thinking, feeling and willing. These 3 functions are in the mana. So the emotions are there in the mind, and we understand in psychology, I don't know how it's in the Ayurvedic understanding, but of course you also have something like a subconscious mind, that the feelings come more from there. We don't control what feeling comes up when. We just notice when they arrived, and then they're there. And then we can choose how do we respond to the feeling. And ultimately, as I said before, like a person who has cultivated an attitude of pride is much more vulnerable to anger than a person who has cultivated the attitude of humility. Or we say, what is Bescheidenheit in English? Do you know that? Because it's a bit different from humility. It's simply, having a bit, I don't know the word now. So, this is how we can influence our mind. We influence the emotions actually indirectly by cultivating certain attitudes and values that then determine the relationship we're going to have with ourselves, with people and things around us. Similarly, like with possessiveness, and then with greed, and then with upsetness, if things that I consider my property are being taken, or I don't get what I think I deserve. If I cultivate more the attitude of detachment and the cultivated knowledge, nothing is actually mine. I don't have any claim on things, on people, not even on my own body. The more I cultivate that attitude, the less I'm affected by feelings of greed, possessiveness and envy. So this is the way how to ultimately control the feeling, because the feeling is actually a mirror of something else. And often we don't see it as something else. We see the feeling and think, oh, the feeling is the problem, but then even we don't know what to do about it. Usually what we then know is, repress it, or be unsure what to do with it. And of course there's always a sattvic way to deal with things, a rajasic way and a tamasic way to deal with things. The tamasic way, because tamas means ignorance, is about covering it up. Not showing it, not acknowledging, putting it aside, and then it might backfire on us in some way, whatever. And then the passionate, the rajasic way is to really dive into it, like some feelings are more connected even to the modes. Fear, for example, insecurity, dejection, these are go more in the tamas direction. Fear, and this is tamas, like the avoidance of things and making yourself small, or I'm helpless, so on. Rajas is the other thing, I'm very powerful, and then also anger is there. Lust is considered to be in a mode of passion, because I have much more claims, that's mine, I want to enjoy it. And then sattva, there's the peacefulness, what we spoke here in regards to the Brahmins. Their relationship with things is different. They have given up certain claims because of austerity. Let's see again the Sanskrit word, what was it? Tapa. Dhamma and tapa. Self-control and austerity, shaucha and purity, and religiousness also. So because of that, certain feelings don't come up in them. What to speak of the Vaishnava who has cultivated that. Whereas the Rajasic and Tamasic person who has a lot of claims and identification with the body will naturally experience these feelings. But again, the feelings themselves are not the actual issue. The actual issue is the mindset that is underlying it. The mentality, the attitudes that have been cultivated. So even Lord Shiva is angry. He is rather coming from a higher place of balancing the injustice that has been done. Like the Brahmin also, he sees from a point of knowledge, and often it says the Brahmin's curse is actually not a curse, ultimately turns out to be a blessing. That through that experience of being cursed, often the people come to realization of higher values, or like of their own selves. Mm-hmm. So that is something very important to look at, to influence one's own mindset, and with this would be the apparent indirect way to control emotions. But also it's about, if I want to understand my emotions, I have to some degree give space to them, experience them, observe them, and reflect upon them. So then I can also let go of some emotion. Because the emotion might also tell me something very important that I need to know or to look at. Let's look at the emotion, it might be anger in this case, as a mirror. And let's look in it and say, and ask, what is it showing me? What does it want to tell me? And it could be something is very unfair here, or something is unjust, something has to be changed. Or, I'm wronged in a way. And then we can see, okay, but what can be done productively to not go into tamas by repressing it, or like avoiding now things, or by rajas to getting into attack mode, defensive, and destroy those who hurt me. No, but rather in the sattvic way, acknowledging something is wrong here. Okay, how can we change it? How can we create the right thing? How can we come from injustice to justice? How can we come from impurity to purity? It's more like looking at, because sattva is the maintaining principle, the purifying principle. Let's try to take out, or get free of the elements that are destructive, and bring in the elements that would be productive. That would be something. So here we can also have a look at the values these qualities have actually for us. That is not just about, because the Shastras say one should be like this, so therefore let me be like this, even if I struggle for it. But no, let's rather understand how these qualities, by cultivating them consciously, one affects one's whole emotional nature also. That's a way to affect your emotions in a very productive way. Hare Krishna. That's what I'm going to say today and everything. And if there are any questions or comments, please feel free to share and ask. See if there may be something from the online guests. May have some. Alright, and then if not, then we complete here. Granted, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai, Śrīla Prabhupada ki jai.
Keshava Madhava ki jai.